Kyle, how do you pass time on long commutes?
Oh, interesting. Well, I mean, most of the time on long commutes, I'm the one that's driving. So the time passing is the activity.
Well, that's what I
driving.
said. Like when you're alone, if you're commuting to work or school or whatever, how do you survive?
Well, first you got to build a camp, right? You don't want to be caught out in the weather. Like driving, you mean?
Yeah. Or riding, whatever.
It's riding on my scooter.
Oh, this is apparently a hard-hitting question. Kyle is dodging it at every turn. Kyle plans murders on his commutes.
No, I listen to my tunes. I listen to my jams. I don't know if I've mentioned it here on the podcast, but a lot of people close to me know the megalomaniacal way that I listen to music is I put it every time I've come across something that's recommended to me or I want to listen to, I put it into one playlist that I delete the music as I listen to. So it's about 3 days long worth of music. And I'm about 2 years behind.
Yeah, because you listen to an album like over and over and over again until you feel like you're done with it. And then you move on. So like there's stuff that I've recommended to you probably years ago that you haven't gotten to. And then I'll just get a comment from you one day out of the blue that's like, hey, Emily, I listened to that thing. It's great.
Yeah. And half of the time it won't be you because I'll have forgotten who recommended it to me.
And or I've forgotten what I've recommended to you.
And that's the way the turnip turns, right?
Welcome to Butter No Parsnips. Every week on Butter No Parsnips, your hosts Emily Moyers and Kyle Imperator take you on an adventure through the weird, wacky, wonderful, and sometimes even wicked world of one wayside word. Strange characters, delightful bits, and general joyousness abound. Join them as they test each other's etymological expertise.
Hey everybody, welcome to Butter No Parsnips. I'm Kyle Imperator.
And I'm Emily Moyers. And Kyle, are you ready to get on the road on our episode?
On the road on our episode. Yeah, I'd like to listen
commuting to work.
I'd like to listen to this episode of Butter No Parsnips on my ride to work today.
Yeah, all right.
Or to work, which is Butter No Parsnips. So.
Yeah. Well, to work, which is your episode we're going to record after this.
Yeah.
All right, Kyle. The word I've got for you today is exurb. EXURB.
Oh.
Exurb. You might have heard it. It's a used word.
So herb. So I think this is related to like suburb, right? Like suburban.
Yeah, that's a good thing to think.
So like it's not below urban. It's not beneath urban like suburban is. It's outside of urban. Exurban. Exurb.
You've got the parts.
Yeah. So is it just like on the fringes of a city, right?
So, I mean, yes. Like
right?
If suburb is around the city, where is exurb?
Like between the herb and the suburb.
No.
Exurb is so then wait, am I allowed to keep guessing?
Yeah, go ahead. I'll give you one more.
What are the rules here?
I'm leading into water, folks, but I can't make them drink.
Wait, so is exurb so far from herb? It's not herb or suburb? It's like the countryside is exurb?
It is on the fringe of suburb and countryside.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Sure.
It is essentially like as far from the city as you can get while still being considered part of that city's
interesting
area.
Sure.
Yeah, so more precisely, an exurb is a prosperous residential area situated beyond or in the outer ring of a city's suburbs, often populated by commuters to and from that city.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'm trying to think of so when I went to school in Virginia in the George Mason University area, I'm trying to think if that would count as exurb of DC.
Not the county where you were. I was looking at it on a county breakup, which we'll talk about later. But the county where you were is not. It's probably too suburban/urban to be considered an exurb.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Like the area where I went to college is sort of more exurban because it's like almost verging on rural.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
So let's talk about it, Kyle. The noun exurb was coined in 1955 by one A.C. Spektorsky, but we're actually going to come back to him later.
We better, or else.
I promise you, we will come back to Spektorsky.
I'm sorry, is this one of the villains from Ghostbusters?
Well, and you know what's even weirder is I think he was born in Paris to American parents and then came back to America because he sounds so French with a name like Spektorsky.
He sounds so Russian. Spektorsky.
Yep. We're going to come back to him later because going back to the 1830s, even earlier, is the adjective exurban. So we're going to start with that. The exact formation of this word is up for debate. Exurban is either derived from two Latin words or a portmanteau of English words that we get from those Latin words or some mix thereof. The root of exurban ultimately comes from the Latin urbs, as I think you identified, urbs, meaning a city or walled town, sometimes specifically the city, as in Rome. The time when they were speaking Latin.
Crazy.
It is a weird Latin word. It doesn't look like a Latin word. It looks like an early 2000s slang word.
Urbs. Oh, wait. That was a Sims sequel.
Was it?
Urbs. Yeah, it was like Sims, but in the city.
Sure, but it is a Latin word. The Latin adjective urbanus meant in a city or relating to cities, as well as of a person sophisticated or refined. Qualities that might be associated with a city dweller. This adjective urbanus gave rise to two English words. Kyle, do you know what these two English words are?
One of them's going to be urbane.
It is! Very good! Yeah. The other one's even easier. Don't overthink it.
I don't know what urbane means, though.
So urbane kind of means the second definition that I just said. Of a person, urbane means elegant and refined.
Sure.
But more directly...
Urban?
Yeah, you got it. Urban.
Sure.
Those are like the main two. And then obviously a million derivations on urban.
Then there's turban, right? That comes from that, definitely.
That one's different.
Just a fast city dweller.
So urbane came about in English around the 1530s, originally carrying both Latin meanings, like literally of a city and refined. Urban came in the 1600s, only meant of a city directly. And for a long time, it was less commonly used than urbane. Around the 1830s, urbane's definition narrowed to just the more meaning of a person, refined. And so urban became more common as opposed to that. There was also a Latin word for an area which is not quite urban, but not quite the countryside, and that is suburbium, literally an undercity or a less than city. But also, like, sub can also just mean, like, lesser. Right, so it's like, it's not a city, it's less than. Kyle, if you wanted to talk about multiple areas like that, how might you pluralize suburbium?
Suburbia?
Suburbias. Yeah. So English has been using the term suburbia from around the 1870s to refer to sort of all suburbs as a whole, but we're not sure whether it's borrowing from that Latin plural or just formed in English with that IA ending, modeling on words like utopia. But English has been using the noun suburb and the adjective suburban since around the 1300s. Yeah.
That is not something that I would expect.
Absolutely.
Honestly, it's just not something I've come across at all in any texts that old.
The earliest citation listed in the OED is a quote from Deuteronomy 32:32, which refers to the suburbs of Gomorrah, as in Sodom and Gomorrah.
What do we think's happened in those suburbs? Huh?
Isn't that crazy? But it's like if you want to beat the city rush, it's a good place to retire to the suburbs of Gomorrah.
Yeah. I can't wait to move east when I retire.
Get out east.
Get out east. The
Hamptons of Gomorrah.
Yeah, the Hamptons of Gomorrah.
But putting suburban aside and returning to our exurban, the prefix comes from the Latin preposition ex, which, among other things, means from or out of. In English, this prefix often shows up in a sort of shifted sense, meaning former, like ex-spouse, expat, whatever. In that case, it's like someone once in the role of spouse is now out of that role.
Sure.
They're out of being a spouse. They're an ex-spouse, whatever.
That's how I always think of those words in my head. I go through that whole process in my brain. I think I picture them in the role, and then I say, wink, I yoink them out.
Yeah, so, physically like, out of.
Yeah.
Like they were in a box and they were pinched out of the box. But Kyle, can you think of any words that employ ex in its more pure sense, meaning from or out of?
Out of.
There's a million, so you got a lot of options.
Exile.
Yeah, I want 3. That one's a good one.
Execution.
Yes. Yep.
Nice. And I got to do a third one, and the third one is excuse me, princess.
I think that one, yes, it's on my list. Yep, that one's good too.
That's crazy. That's insane.
Most X words are, if you look at the etymology, there's some reason why it connects to out or from. Exo words are not, because that it comes from the ancient Greek equivalent. So like exoskeleton would be Greek, but it also means out. It's just the Greek version. A quick aside, the X preposition also shows up in words where the letter X has been sort of slurred or lost somewhere along the way.
Oh, yeah.
Did you have one? You got really excited.
I did.
I have some.
I did. Well, I immediately had a thought about us talking about this before on the podcast, but I can't remember what word.
Oh.
So go on.
A couple of examples. I had emigrate with an E from the Latin emigrare, quite simply to migrate from a place.
Sure.
Escape from the Latin excapare, literally to get out of one's cape, in the sense of
like the
leaving
places.
What do you think?
Oh, no. I don't thought it's something very different.
The sense that I've seen explained is like if someone's chasing you and they grab a hold of your cloak, you get out of your cloak and they're left just holding.
That is what it comes from?
That's what I've seen.
Why was that happening enough in ancient Rome that they had a specific word for that?
Where we get the word escape.
It's too common of a word for us to use it now.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a problem.
Isn't that crazy? And then the other example I had was the word event from the Latin verb evenio, meaning to occur, but also meant to result from, literally to come out of. So event comes from the noun version of that, eventus, literally outcome.
Wow, it's literally outcome.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Kyle, what about words employing the related prefix to X, extra?
Extraneous.
Sure.
Extramarital.
Sure. Yeah, outside of marriage.
Extravagant.
Let me double check that one.
It's extra outside of vagrancy.
Yeah, literally that is what it is.
Wow, what? No.
It is like wandering off from what is normal.
I love that. So an extravaganza then is
is a full departure. Yes, the Latin extra from the same proto-language roots as X typically means outside or foreign, and uses of these prefixes are pretty easily spotted, as Kyle just rattled off ones that I didn't even have.
I'm so extra.
You are. So exurban might have formed as a portmanteau of extra and suburban. It might just be employing the prefix X. It might just be employing the root urban. All could stand to reason, so it could be anything.
Unless we know the guy who first said it and can
I don't know the guy who first said exurban. I only know the guy who first said exurb. But that came later. We're going to get there, I promise.
Okay.
Just to keep everybody locked in that we are going to get there. The word exurban, referring to this farthest and greenest area of suburbia, formed in a very particular context in the early 1800s. Kyle, any speculation as to what that context might be?
The early 1800s.
Yeah.
Getting away from the hustle and bustle of, I don't know, London?
Do you want, I can help you set the scene a little bit.
Yeah, that would help.
Yeah. So early 1800s means we are deep into the Industrial Revolution.
Oh, yeah, and that helped me.
Okay. Yes. So in that time, cities are more crowded than they've ever been, and thus less sanitary than they've ever been.
Oh, okay. So this was something that was prescribed by a doctor?
Maybe not. It may be too late because health concerns at the time didn't only stem from overcrowding of the living.
Oh, are we talking about cemeteries?
You
somehow?
got it, Kyle.
What?
You got it. The earliest usage of exurban, and a lot of early usage of exurban, was as part of the rural cemetery movement, which, Kyle, you mentioned in episode 112, miasma. What do you remember?
Honestly, very little. I talked about that?
Well, what was the miasma theory or the miasmic theory or whatever?
Oh, well, yeah, because they were like, bad air. Everything in the air is bad, and that's how we're getting all these diseases. And then it like took them hundreds of years to be like, oh, no, it's probably because we're drinking sewage.
Yeah, so essentially, all these tiny churchyards in London and other cities were absolutely full of graves, which were not well kept. There was so much seeping out of them. So there are various reasons that we now understand why illness was very pervasive and how the cemeteries impacted that. At the time, they believed that the foul smell of decomposing corpses, because this is before embalming became common practice,
of course,
so they were all just rotting and stinking.
God.
They thought the disease was carried in the smell, which was the
malaria
theory.
Malaria.
Yes.
Bad air.
Yes. And also like cholera and all, like every disease. They were like, it's because of the smells.
Can you just imagine passing by a cemetery and smelling it and being like, oh, I know that's grandma, you know, like, oh, what a horrible thing.
Crazy. And knowing that she's like stacked like bunk beds with other corpses.
Well, that's how she wanted to go. She died as she lived, honestly.
On the top bunk.
On the top bunk.
Yep. So as a solution, they started putting cemeteries on the outskirts of suburbia, far away from the people, because they thought we need to get the decontaminant away from where these living people are walking around.
Okay. Like, I get fine.
Sure. I have an excerpt here from the Times, the London Times. I believe from 1835, tricky to tell because all I could find was like a reprint of a reprint. But the excerpt is titled, quote, "Exurban Cemeteries." And it reads, "The cholera still fills the Italians with anxiety, but at Rome it has had the effect of inducing the people to conquer the habit of burying their dead in the churches of the city, and several burying grounds are preparing outside the walls."
It's just like they're so close, you know? Like cholera specifically, I think, is one of those like water based diseases.
Yes, and that is what it was. It was like the graves were not, like the boxes were not sealed, so all of the like corpse bacteria was just going into their water supply, and they were drinking it.
The juice.
Yeah. Yep. It was bad. But then, of course, because these exurban cemeteries were out in the countryside, they had more space and more greenery. A lot of them were like beautified. They sort of started to look at cemeteries in a different way. A lot of them followed the like English garden style of the 18th century. They were like, you know, gazebos and you know, really lush greenery. It became sort of like a place of tranquility in nature. So those are the exurban cemeteries. That was the initial context for this word.
That's fun. I mean, that's fun to know. Like, I mean, that's how most cemeteries are in the United States that offer, like ones that aren't within cities, obviously.
Yeah.
So it's like good to know that there's like a reason why it looks that way. Like there's a history behind that. That's fun.
I think the first major exurban cemetery was one in Paris that was modeled on the English garden style. And that was like kind of the model for like the best a cemetery could look at the time.
They also put a cigarette in every corpse's mouth in that cemetery.
Like in a cigarette holder.
In a cigarette holder. Just sticking straight out of the ground.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have lips, so they can't. Of course, Kyle, it's not just the dead that want to escape the big smoke. Exurban residential areas boomed in the decades following World War II. We're jumping ahead a little bit. As more and more people wanted the salary of working in the city, but the peace and quiet of living far from it. In the US, at least, this also folds into the white flight or white exodus of the 50s and 60s, in which many middle-class white Americans migrated to suburbia in response to increasing racial diversities in cities. As populations increased, and also as railways and highways and automobiles improved, the sort of radius of commuters surrounding a given city expanded further and further, and is still expanding further and further.
Yeah.
We'll get there later. And the resulting neighborhoods, these exurbs and their denizens, were described in detail by American author Auguste Comte Spektorsky in his 1955 book, The Exurbanites.
Yeah, I'm so glad we've arrived here. And I'm so glad that the episode has been about the dead up until this point. It feels like this is truly a homecoming, you know?
Absolutely. So Spektorsky begins his book by describing commuters in general, writing, quote, "The commuter is distinguished from other mortals by, perhaps most notably, his remarkable vigor." And he describes the physical strain of waking earlier, getting home later, doing household chores, as well as doing, quote, "self-imposed activities under the correct or mistaken notion that they are fun."
What is that? What does that mean?
You know, he comes home from work and he's all tired and he's only got so much time for the weekend and he's got all these household chores to do, but then he also tells himself that he's got to like go fishing and do, a night at the bar because he's telling himself that that's fun and I should do that. Yep. And maybe he's right, maybe he's not. He also describes the psychic strain, in his words, of constantly transitioning between the different worlds of his city work and his more suburban, rural home life, writing, "Certainly the manner of his life is schizoid in the extreme."
Oh, wow. Some of that great, not scary, bad, early 20th century psychology words coming out at us today.
Absolutely. Spektorsky then differentiates between two, quote, subspecies of commuters, the suburbanite and a newer subspecies, which he dubs the exurbanite, its habitat, the exurbs.
Wait, so he came up with suburbs too?
No, I told you that's been around since the 1300s.
But like suburbs.
No, that already existed. But he did, he said this other newer type of commuter that goes even farther out doesn't have a name, but the word exurban had already existed. So he called it the exurbs, and the people that live there are exurbanites.
That's great.
Yeah. And he goes on to describe the exurbanite, I think, how we today envision like the mid-century working family man. Does that like conjure an image for you, Kyle?
Yeah. I mean, white dress shirt, black tie, black slacks that go up almost to his nipples. Like the shirt is rolled up to the elbows like mine is.
Okay.
He's got a lawnmower running at all times of the day. He's got a little boy with the beanie with the propeller, and a girl with pigtails. Yeah. And the wife is always holding a bowl and mixing something no matter what time of the day it is. For sure.
She's got a roast in the oven at all times.
Yeah.
So the exurbanites, as Spektorsky describes them, are sort of a fashionable in-group. They tend to work in close proximity to one another. They hang out outside of work. They have similar tastes and are always, quote, well-to-do and sort of on trend. Sort of like desperately keeping themselves on trend, whether or not they have the funds.
That sounds very mid-century.
It is, yes, for sure. And he discusses how the exurbanite is inexorably tied to the city and is really an urbanite at heart, though he attempts to integrate with this other world. Spektorsky writes, quote, "Every exurbanite believes firmly that he is escaping from the rat race, that by moving to the exurbs, they have made a major step in the realization of their ambitions. The average exurbanite has achieved, he will assure you in all seriousness, or is on the right track to achieving his dream." Capital D.
Capital D.
Capital D, dream. His unlimited dream is what follows that.
It's very like American propaganda-y.
A little bit,
thoughts,
yeah.
Right?
But like the book isn't really taking that. But like the book is sort of taking a very
they're kind of explaining it.
Clear view of it. Yeah. We
don't
have time to like really dig into this book, unfortunately, but it is a super interesting like mid-century view on mid-century life. Spektorski's writing is very witty and funny and good, but also like kind of insightful. And the book is also full of these very delightful drawings by cartoonist Robert Osborne that really adds a lot. So if anyone's interested, the Exurbanites, it's on the Internet Archive, and it's a fun thing to skim through. But the point is that from that book, exurb emerged as the name for a residential area, often upper middle class, often primarily white, verging on rural, but populated by city commuters. For those listeners looking for examples near you, and if you live in the United States, I've got great news. It's a word, it's not exclusively used in the United States, but I think it mostly is a US thing, but it is used in other places. But the Brookings Institution for Nonprofit Research published a report in 2006 titled Finding Exurbia, America's Fast-Growing Communities at the Metropolitan Fringe. And they sort of discuss the culture of these places at large and the demographics of these places, but they also identify 240 exurban counties in relation to various metropolitan hubs across the US. Their parameters for exurbs were, quote, communities located on the urban fringe that have at least 20% of their workers commuting to jobs in an urbanized area, exhibit low housing density, i.e. houses are farther apart, and have relatively high population growth, because they were contending that these places are becoming more populated.
Okay.
Kyle, you and I live in the sort of vaguely New York City area, which was the urban hub that Spektorski centers on. Oh. His exurbs were counties like Rockland and Westchester, as well as North Shore, Long Island. But 50 plus years later, those areas are far more suburban or even urban than they once were. So the exurbs have been pushed outwards further. So Brookings lists New York's exurbs as Sussex County, New Jersey, and Monroe and Pike Counties, Pennsylvania.
Oh, wow.
Far.
That's so far.
That's like a 2-hour commute if there weren't any traffic.
I find it hard to believe that 20% of that population is commuting to the city every day.
It is crazy, but Kyle, the claim that exurban areas are fast growing is supported even more recently than that by a 2024 article by Mike Schneider of the Associated Press. Quote, going downtown or to the burbs? Nope. The exurbs are where people are moving. Schneider discusses a new sort of exodus from dense urban areas, in part spurred by the pandemic, people looking to get out of cities for that reason, and people willing to take on longer and longer commutes to work just to have that tranquil escape when they come home.
I mean, listen, I can't speak for you, Emily, but I know I've dreamt about it from time to time, you know?
Yeah.
We talked about it during the pandemic. We almost tried to rent a house for 6 with 4 other friends in Pennsylvania just because it was
it's true
on a farm and had 2 kitchens.
Yeah, we were really enthralled by that idea because it turns out we discovered that if you look at prices for a home for a family of 6, but you're just 6 friends, the price per person is like not unmanageable.
It's like super affordable.
Yeah.
Super affordable. Landlords, take note.
I know. It's crazy. But now, Kyle, I've come to the end of our linguistic commute. It's time for you to get to work at your job of using exurb in a sentence.
Gosh, I wish I had saved that factoid about I was trying to move in the pandemic for the sentence. That would have been a great use of exurb.
I know. It could have been in Pike County, Pennsylvania, and then you would have been set.
Yeah. I'm gonna bring back our gentleman from earlier. I feel like he needs a closing to his story.
Yeah.
And so I'll talk about how at the end of a long, long day at the nuclear bracelet factory, he makes nuclear bracelets.
Yeah.
Mr. Mid-Century, Mr. Decentury drives home 6 hours on his convertible scooter to his home in the exurbs, where he feeds his lawnmower daughter, all the I don't know, steak flambe, the steak Alaska she could ask for.
You got it. Perfect 1950s normal sentence.
Normal sentence.
Nailed it.
Thank you.
Kyle, you want to play a game?
Let's play a game.
Okay. Kyle, the game I have for you is called the non-urbs.
Ooh.
Today we've talked about several urban words, but this is not the only city-related adjective that we have. So for this game, I'm going to give you the etymologies of some non-urban city words, and I want you to tell me the words.
Okay, sounds fun.
Kyle, what adjective derives from a Greek noun meaning mother city?
Mother city.
Think about your Greek, Kyle.
Greek.
You got this.
Oh.
We'll start with the city part.
Oh. Polis.
Yeah.
So
mother city.
Politan. Is it just metropolitan?
You got it, Kyle.
Wow. Yeah. I had no idea that's where that came from.
Yeah. Similar in form, what adjective derives from the Greek citizen of the world?
Cosmopolitan.
You got it. Yes, I think cosmos meaning world and politan meaning city or citizen.
Mm-hmm.
Next one. What adjective comes from the Latin for citizen? I have a follow-up hint if you need it.
This one's not from politan?
No, this is Latin
politan and Latin, not Latin. So Latin citizen. Yeah, what's the hint?
It was borrowed for the name of a sedan that was marketed to the average citizen.
I feel like you brought this up before. We talked about it on Brewum.
In
Brewum, our car episode.
Yeah.
And it was a civic.
Yeah, civic.
Oh, civic.
Civic.
Oh.
Because it means relating to cities or citizens.
Yep. I knew that.
You got it. Last one. This is, I think, maybe the hardest one, but we'll find out. What adjective comes from a different Latin word for citizen and is often...
Oh my God.
I've got a follow-up hint for this one too. It is often used to describe where you might park your Honda Civic.
Might park your Honda Civic. Well, if it was like my Jaguar, I'd park it in a garage, but my Honda Civic,
but if
I might
you were
just
out
park
in
it
town
on the boulevard. That's my answer. Out in town.
If you wanted to look for a lot to put your car in town, you would look for a what lot?
A parking lot? Well,
what kind of parking? If you wanted to park for free in town.
If I wanted to park for
Kyle
free in
doesn't
town,
know this word.
I would look for a lot that has a sign with a money symbol and a X through it. I don't know what's the answer.
Municipal.
That's a good word.
Yeah. So those are all words for relating to cities: metropolitan, cosmopolitan, civic, and municipal. Kyle, that's what I got for you on exurbs.
Emily, I love it. I learned so much about city life. I learned so much about farm deadness.
Yeah.
It's honestly, it's the circle of life is what it is.
That's right.
From city life to farm dead.
You work a day and then you're dead.
But for those of you at home who aren't farm dead, remember that you can watch us on YouTube at Butter No Parsnips. You can find Butter No Parsnips on other social media, on Facebook and Instagram at Butter No Parsnips Podcast, and on TikTok at Butter No Parsnips. And if you liked today's episode, why don't you consider giving us a 5-star rating or review wherever you heard us?
And if you really liked today's episode, consider donating to our Patreon at patreon.com/butternoparsnips. Donating $5 or more gets you exclusive access to Buttered Parsnips, our After Hours podcast.
Thanks so much to all of you. You're the ones who help us make what we make.
And with that, I've been Emily Moyers.
And I've been Kyle Imperator, and this has been Butter No Parsnips.
Butter No Parsnips is produced by Seth Glicksman, Kyle Imperator, and myself, Emily Moyers. The main and accompanying themes were composed by Kyle Imperator.